take it away. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Absolutely. So I am glad to be here with you tonight with Generational Change. I am a three-term former North Carolina State Senator. Prior to that, I was a school board member. And so you're looking at someone who's been an engineer by training. I was a mechanical engineer, worked for the Boeing Company in Seattle, Washington. But I was born and raised, grew up in North Carolina, attended one of the best universities on the planet. And I'm repping my HBCU, North Carolina A&T State University. I'm a proud Aggie. And after leaving North Carolina A&T, I was an engineer in the government and private sector for a Fortune 500 company for about 10 years. After a mission trip to Uganda, and after getting my master's degree in religious studies from Howard University in Washington, D.C., I went on a mission trip. And it was on that mission trip, I was like, wow, we can send technology to Jupiter and back, but we can't to developing countries beyond our borders or within the rural parts of my state and nation right within our borders. And so the challenge for me was to look at re-engineering policies to give everybody else a better access to opportunities. And so I became a high school mathematics and chemistry teacher. I've done that now for 17 years, which has been exciting. I always laugh and tell people that I supported high-speed civil transport as well as space station when I worked for Boeing in Seattle, Washington. And the funny thing is that I didn't really make extraterrestrial contact until I started serving in the North Carolina State Senate and this crazy GOP agenda. I was like, oh goodness.
Yeah.
But at any rate, we are here today. And after serving for 3 terms, I am throwing my hat in the ring to become North Carolina's next U.S. Senator. I am the most prepared candidate to get that job done.
You certainly have quite a plethora of experience, which is beautiful. One thing that is, I think, very distinct in the state of Florida is the difference between the GOP and the Democratic Party. But what is it like in the state of North Carolina? Because the one thing I think we can all say in the state of Florida is that the Democratic Party is not the most competent, at least in North Carolina. It looks like you guys are definitely making some serious headway.
Well, we are, because when I first started serving in the North Carolina Senate, we were in a Republican supermajority. And so I was serving on the Board of Education in Northampton County, which is located in northeastern North Carolina. And it's one of the 8 counties that I served in my North Carolina Senate district. And the challenge for me as a classroom teacher, I had a 5-point lesson plan that I certainly needed to take from the classroom floor to the Capitol floor. Then Senator Thom Tillis was Speaker Thom Tillis. And when he became Speaker, they passed the monster voting law. They passed they cut 5,000 teacher assistants. They made it impractical to be able to get the resources we needed to have children be able to succeed and become career and college ready. So he inspired me to run for state senate and, get off midterm in my school board that I served. And so definitely we have been able to make ground. We started with a Republican supermajority. Now we just have a Republican majority. They have a Republican majority in the state Senate now of 29 to 21.
Definitely close to that. That's for sure.
She needs to turn down.
I think you need to turn down the. I think there may be like a little bit of a feedback coming. I'm not sure. If it's. Let's try it again. Let's see how that.
Let's try it again.
Yep, I think that's good. Is that good?
How about that? Is that volume better?
Yeah. Well, I have a very deep voice, so I guess it just projects pretty far.
Don't do that. So, should we talk policy?
I think that policy is definitely something that on the progressive side of politics is very important to most people. So what would you say are the top 3 issues that you're fighting for? And more or less, what distinguishes you from the other candidates? I would hope most specifically that you do not take corporate money.
Absolutely. I am the only candidate in the Democratic primary of 2020 who did not take a dime of corporate PAC money. And I will be the same in my 2022 run. I don't take fossil fuel money. I have taken the End Citizens United pledge. I don't believe that corporations and outsized organizations and dark money PACs should play a role in who we have to represent us in North Carolina. What distinguishes me me is, as in the last time, I am the most experienced candidate who has demonstrated the ability to achieve success navigating the rural and urban divide. I grew up on a farm in North Carolina. That motivated me to be an engineer. I had to pick cucumbers. We used to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, pick cucumbers until about 11 to 12 o'clock. We go to the cucumber market, sell our produce, and that gave me a wonderful story. It gave me a strong work ethic, but it gave me a drive to say, okay, I want to apply myself, get to school so I can get a job working in the air conditioning, as opposed to what my grandmother used to say, you better open the window, wait for whatever condition the air comes in. Having those small town rural roots gave me a great perspective about how to harness resources and make them available. So my top priorities are first to address income inequality. As you know, African-American women, such as myself, even though I was an engineer for a Fortune 500 company, I did not earn on the dollar what my white male counterparts earned, and that's just not fair. Black women earn about 62 cents on the dollar of a white male. Latino women earn less than that, about 58 cents, and then Indigenous women, First Americans, only earn about 53 cents on the dollar of a white male. On average, white women and Asian women earn 80 cents and 82 cents on the dollar. Okay, so if I only earn 62 cents on the dollar, I might not have a problem with that if I were taxed at 62% on the dollars that I earn, but I'm not taxed that way. And we definitely need to close the wealth gap. This is the greatest income inequality with the effects of the pandemic that we have seen since the turn of the 19th century. And we really need to look at equal pay for equal work. I am a firm supporter of the ERA, and that's what distinguishes me as a candidate. My top priority is address economic opportunities, economic development, reengineering policies for businesses to provide economic development across all parts of the states, particularly in the rural areas that are losing population because we are so economically distressed. My second priority is climate, addressing climate change with strong environmental stewardship. And as a 3-term North Carolina senator, I am the only candidate in this race who has earned Senator of the Year. My freshman year, I was Senator of the Year by the labor union, the State Employees Association, which is the largest union in North Carolina in our state. And so how does a Black woman in a Republican supermajority earn Legislator of the Year, Senator of the Year her first term? It's because of the years I have spent reengineering policies on the local level to make them work better. I was Senator of the Year by the North Carolina Legal Conservation Voters. I was a Green Tie Rising Star my first session. The second session, I was Senator of the Year because of my strong environmental record working for clean energy, solar, wind. And then my third session, I was Senator of the Year by the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association as a distinction of my strong platform on environmental change, zero carbon emissions, and so forth. And then my third priority is to make sure that we have healthcare access for all, especially with this pandemic. What this pandemic has shown us is that our system is broken, and I don't care about making more profits for the insurance industry. People need access to healthcare as a basic human right.
Well, that is because we were going to ask about the healthcare question, but do you have something?
I do. Yeah, because I think that you've definitely presented a lot of great information, but I want to bring it back first. You know, we'll go through each thing, but obviously I want to start with the economy because North Carolina is a very diverse economy. It has a couple of what I would call mid-major cities, particularly Charlotte and Raleigh, but there's also a lot of rural parts of the state mixed in between, obviously Appalachia, and Asheville all the way to the west. And then, of course, the oceanfront with Wilmington all the way to the east. Can you talk about the three primary, what I would call economic policies that progressives are really focused on these days, which, of course, is living wage, a universal basic income, and a federal jobs guarantee? What are your thoughts on those three specific economic issues?
Absolutely. So I just did a presentation for Red Hat National for Martin Luther King's Day back in January last month. And so Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was the one who came up with the uniform basic income. And so my speech and my message and the work that I have been doing is building the beloved community bit by brick. And so if we look at our algorithms and what is causing systemic inequities in pay for minorities in particular, is we have to wrap our heads around looking at the lack of access, how computer algorithms have minorities paying more for premiums as opposed to anything else. When Martin Luther King proposed a uniform basic income, he proposed $1,000 a month. And at the time, the annual salary was $7,000 a month. President Nixon, unfortunately, recommended something else, but this pandemic has shown us people couldn't fathom a UBI before. But now, as we look at the stimulus checks that have been provided during the pandemic, we can recognize that that is a very viable option, a standard amount for every American, with the option for the wealthy to reject that. If they don't want to accept the UBI, that's fine. Yeah. I believe that we should definitely promote that. I certainly support it. I also support a proposal by Representative Clyburn out of South Carolina, and that's the 10-20-30 plan that requires all government spending bill, every government spending bill needs to look at those areas of systemic poverty. And so anywhere where 10% of that federal spending budget has to go to those counties where 20% live below the poverty level for the last 30 years. And so that's definitely in a federal jobs guarantee needs to be part of that. Unless the federal government intervenes and promotes the opportunities for minority businesses, women-owned businesses, for all of us to be able to have equal access and equal opportunities to compete for these jobs. I think that's very important. And I think I answered all of your questions. If not, please specify what I left out.
You did. We have a question from Mario. It's on the screen. I don't know if you can see it, but African-American females also hold the most student loan debt. Do you support student loan cancellation to address the economic inequalities?
Absolutely, Mario. Absolutely. Cancel student debt. That should be a plan of any economic relief. Time and time again, when we have had a recession in this nation, we have always bailed out the banks. We've bailed out the corporations. But when is Main Street going to have our bailout? When is the average everyday American, hardworking, blue-collar workers, when are we going to have our bailout? When are we going to have that? And so we definitely need to make sure that we cancel student loan debt. I believe that any economic relief should begin with that discussion.
Do you support Medicare for all?
I support Medicare for all. I supported Medicare for all when I ran in 2020. I support Medicare for all. I'm running in 2022. This pandemic has just laid bare the problems with the current system. Anytime you have a system that prioritizes profit over people's health care, it's untenable and it's unsustainable. Try having employer-based insurance. How many people do you know who are only on a dead-end job because they need the insurance? And those who lost their jobs in this pandemic are without insurance. They are without health care. So it's past time that we change that. While I'm not concerned, with the well-being of the private health insurance industry, I do want to ensure that individuals who work for the insurance companies have that time to transition into other opportunities and new industries. But I definitely support Medicare for all.
Yeah,
it's a basic human right.
Yep, yeah, 100% agree. One last thing that I did want to touch upon with economics before we move on. As I mentioned before, North Carolina is a very unique state in terms of its geography. One of the things economically I think we absolutely need 1,000% is an infrastructure bill centered on clean energy jobs. You mentioned yourself, you're very much in favor of that. Whatever it takes to get to a formula of the Green New Deal is fine by me. Call it a clean energy infrastructure bill. I have no problem with that. Can you talk about how something like that would benefit North Carolina, considering the fact that there is so much rural territory in that state?
Absolutely. And North Carolina is one of those top states that have a high rural geography population. In fact, we have 80 rural counties and 20 urban suburban areas. Agriculture is our number one industry in North Carolina to the tune of $84 billion. And so that is why it's very important that we understand how to engineer those policies so they work best for that area of North Carolina. Having so much geographical territory and understanding that we have to take care of the only planet that God has ever given us, I definitely have supported and fought hard for policies that expand clean energy. I believe a clean, renewable energy mix is the best mix for North Carolina. And that's why I was a champion for the Amazon wind farm that we have off the coast. We do have a different geography. You are right. And so we have banking industry in Charlotte in the Mecklenburg area, but we need to make sure that we are working with urban and rural counties to promote opportunities for all.
One of the issues that does not get talked about a lot when it comes to domestic elected officials is foreign policy. Now, I believe that Joe is going to be a mixed bag as president for obvious reasons. We give credit where credit is due. He intends to pull U.S. support out from the war in Yemen, which is great. But there is also talk.
That's not a war. Sorry. That's a genocide.
It's a genocide.
Okay.
It is a genocide.
Sorry.
It's what it is. But he's also talking about not withdrawing our troops from Afghanistan. What is your foreign policy position? Do you lean more to the progressive libertarian side, which is we really should not be in any of these foreign countries to begin with? Do you have more of a moderate stance that it's circumstantial? Or are you a war hawk? I doubt you're like Tillis, but I just want to. I think it's very important that people know, because I don't think foreign policy does get talked about enough, especially when it comes to senatorial candidates.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up in a military family. My dad served our country well. He was in the United States Air Force, and he certainly fed 6 children, 5 girls and 1 boy. And of course, my brother is the youngest. I have a deep love and a commitment for the men and women who lay down their lives every day to protect our freedoms. But it is not fair for them to have to go to other countries, intrude in those countries, spend gazillions of dollars with war and then rebuilding those countries and not taking care of our country. I am against this patriotic colonialism. I was the only Democrat in the chamber when the vote came up for anti-BDS. We got to get to a point in this nation where we understand that the exorbitant amounts of money that we spend on a military budget can go to an infrastructure bill that will help us build our economies all over this nation, all over this state. So I am for the safe removal of our troops where we have the stability, and I am for investing that money that we spend on priorities such as healthcare so that we can get back to health, back to work, and our children can get back to school.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.